when you can, if you truly need it, just get the help, because you can only, I say we've got all the answers, but you can only do so much on your own. Like you need somebody to help support you, spot your blind spots, call you out on your own BS, all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that we do for our clients and we know helps them. You need that yourself, and you can never be too proud or too egotistical to think that you don't need help and you've got everything figured out, because as you said, the more you figure out, the more you realize that you've got nothing figured out, and nobody's got it figured out. Elon Musk, all these people that you aspire to, Tony Robbins, whoever, they haven't got it figured out. None of them have. None of us have. And
there's no manual for life, though. That's the biggest thing. Like, no one has got the answers. All people have got is their own experience.
Yeah.
Whether that's practical experience, learnt experience, like whatever it is, like they've read something in a book, like the best person in the world, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Tony Robbins, whoever it is, like you said there, like they literally are only giving information based off what they know. Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Welcome back to another episode of the Prime Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Daniel James, and today I'm joined in my studio. I'm calling it studio now. It's still my office, but it's going to be a studio. Mr. Ali West, how are we?
I'm great, man. Loving life. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. So this is a back-to-back episode, meaning that I've literally just done recording for Ali's podcast, and I was coming on my podcast, so it's a double header. But having just been on your podcast, I know that you're going to give some great insight to my audience, again, about your journey and your growth. So for anybody that's new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a returning guest, glad to have you back with us again. But don't forget that if you take any value from today's episode, to like and share it with a friend, to help us spread the word, to help as many people as possible. And again, if you're on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any up-and-coming things that me and Mikey have got coming for you. So Ali, I don't even really know where to go with this. Obviously, like I said, it's thrown me off a little bit, the fact of, because I feel like I've known a little bit about you while you were interviewing me, so now it's a bit like vice versa. So why don't you start by giving my audience a bit of a background into who is Ali West?
God, how long you got? That's it.
Well, you're the one on time limit, so we've got an hour.
Yeah, that's it. It's an interesting question, and Mikey asked me a similar sort of question, and I'm learning every day about who I am. But I guess if you want my story, my background growing up was always into sports, always into football. I loved football from as soon as I could walk, really. Started playing properly when I was about 7 or 8, and all I ever wanted to do really was be a professional footballer. When I got to 17, 18, I kind of realised that wasn't really going to come to fruition. I probably could have made a decent kind of earning playing semi-pro, but when I was 19, I ruptured my cruciate, my ACL, complete tear, and that put me out of the game for a while. Managed to have reconstructive surgery, get back into things, and just played like lower league, kind of semi-professional. And when I was 20, I just kind of fell into health and fitness because a friend said, "Have you ever considered being a PT?"
That was like the in thing, wasn't it, at the time? Like everyone's being PT, everyone's just starting to get into it.
So this is like, 2007, maybe? Yeah, 2007. And I was like, no, I've never really been in the gym, only on a rowing machine or on a treadmill, never lifted any weights. I was skinny. I was probably, back then sounds terrible to say it, 56 kilos, probably.
What are you now?
68. Yeah. So I was so skinny. I was fit as anything cardiovascularly, but I was so skinny. And I did a 2-week intensive gym course with Premier.
Yep.
And then I was lucky enough to get a job at Virgin Active, and then they put me through my PT as an MVQ with Lifetime. And that was in 2008, and the rest is history. I built up my PT business there, went out on my own in 2011 to be a self-employed PT. And then in 2017, I opened my own gym, Kinetic Fitness, which I'm still running and operating with my wife now. We've been going 5 years in January, so it's coming up to 5 years. And yeah, it's been a mad journey. And in 2015, I really started working on myself, really started to go deep.
What led you down into that path?
You want to get into that?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. So
let's go down that rabbit hole.
So 2015, everything changed for me really, because at the end of 2014, I ended a relationship. I was with my ex-partner for 7.5 years. We had a house together, a mortgage, and I was just not in it. We were just coexisting. It wasn't working. And I made the big and bold decision just to pull the plug on that. And that was December 2014. It was the worst time as well because it was over Christmas and New Year. And you don't really want to be ending relationships at that point in the year. Not that there's ever a right time to end a relationship, but I ended it over the Christmas and festive period, which wasn't that great. Moved in with my parents, let her stay in the house. And I was a bit all over the gaff, to be honest. I knew I'd made the right decision, but I was a bit all over the place. And I was on my mum and dad's sofa for about a month. And then my dad got me a camp bed from IKEA in his office. So I had like a shredder near my head, a printer near my feet. I had a small rail with just my clothes on and like a little shelf with my aftershave and smellies on and whatnot. And I was just like, what have I done here? I've gone from like a nice, comfortable 3-bedroom house to like sleeping in my dad's office, basically. So it was a lot of like soul searching. And then in January, I don't know how it happened. Me and Sarah, my now wife, we kind of got talking via Facebook Messenger. And she was like, do you want to get a coffee?
Just one of them random
really
ads.
random. And it was so random because it was almost identical. She'd been with her ex-partner for 7.5 years, house together. They'd split up a month before me and my ex-partner had. So it was just like we was in the same position. She'd managed to get herself her own flat. Went, had a drink with her. And then, the rest is history with Sarah. After 2 months, I moved in with her fully. After 9 months, I proposed. But during that period in 2015, when we first got together, my friend at the time was living in Scottsdale, Arizona, in the States. And I'd never been out to see him, and he'd been over there 8 years. And for whatever reason, I'd never got out there to see him. And I was like, look, I'm going to bite the bullet and go, because all these years I should have gone, and I've never been. Managed to scrape the money together, got a ticket, flew out to Arizona for 10 nights, spent 10 nights there. And whilst I was in Arizona, I went to Sedona, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, and maybe your listeners might be or they might not, but Sedona is a truly magical place. It's on par with Glastonbury, with Mount Fuji, with Mount Shasta, with Lake Titicaca, all of these kind of magical, the Great Pyramids of Giza, all of these kind of magical places. Sedona's up there, and there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of vortices. There's masculine, feminine energy. People have said they've seen aliens there. People have had all sorts of stuff happen to them there. And I had something that is very difficult to put into words happen to me there. But whilst I was there, we went to Sedona, did some hiking, my friend and I. And he said to me, do you want to do meditation? And I was like, what are you on about? I've never done meditation. I was like, that's just for hippies, that kind of stuff. But my mate had gone really heavily into the spiritual path. He'd got into meditation, got into all sorts of spiritual elements. And he was like, look, I'll just guide you and we'll see what happens. So we sat on the edge of this rock and he started guiding me through a meditation. And he did quite an advanced and complex meditation. He did something called the macabre meditation. And people can just Google this, but it's like kind of focusing on your chakras, which is energy points through your body, visualizing colors in your head. That's how it pans out. So it's quite an advanced one, and I wouldn't recommend that for beginners, but I did it and I just felt the most magical sensation come over me. I felt completely at peace. I felt so in the moment. I felt just like love and gratitude and high vibrations just wash over me for a very short period of time. It was just like almost just like an instant moment in time. And we came out of it. And my mate said, how did you feel that? And I was like, what was that? And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, that was fucking incredible. It's like probably the best thing that's ever happened to me in life. He's like, what do you mean? What happened? I was like, I don't know. I just felt incredible. It feels amazing. He was like,
did you feel like you'd gone to another planet?
Yeah,
pretty much. Do you know when I get into that space meditation, the only way I can describe it is like I'm not on this planet.
Yeah.
I'm in another realm, and I can't describe it.
Yeah.
You can't put it, until you've experienced it.
It was
you
crazy.
Can't put it into words.
It was absolutely crazy. So the day went on, and then we did some more hiking. It's beautiful red rocks. You would have seen it on TV in Sedona. It's very much like similar to the Grand Canyon, but it's more beautiful and more magical than the Grand Canyon. So all these beautiful red rocks, and there's one called Cathedral Rock, and it's the biggest rock in Sedona. So we scrambled and hiked up there and you know what Arizona's like, it's like boiling hot, you're like
desert, isn't it?
dying,
Desert,
dying getting up there. And we got up to the top, he's like, do you want to do another meditation? I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, it's like I took some crack or something, I wanted some more of it. And not that I've done crack, but anyway. And we sat on the edge of this rock again. He's like, we're going to do a grounding meditation. So people might be a bit more familiar with grounding and like getting centered and connecting with the earth. So we did that, felt amazing again, similar sensations, feeling great. Then we scrambled halfway back down Cathedral Rock, and we sat side by side and just had some water and we're chilling. And then he's like, do you want to do another little meditation? I was like, yeah, sure, but can we just not do anything guided? Let's just see what happens. Close my eyes. And then the first thing that happened was I heard Sarah speaking to me in the meditation, and we was kind of like talking, even though she was over back in the UK, like the other side of the Atlantic. And she was like, oh, I hope you're having a great time. I know you're having a great time. Everything's great over here. Can't wait to see you again. I was like, what the hell is this? I'm like telepathically connecting with her. And then the weirdest thing, this is the most weirdest thing that happened the whole time. I was sat there and my mate was sat to, let me get this right. He was sat to the left of me and I was sat on his right. And then I just started like leaning into him, like rocking to the left. And he was like, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, that isn't me. He was like, yeah, it is. And then he pushed me back. And as he pushes me back to the right, this energy or this force or whatever starts pushing me back. And he's pushing and pushing and pushing. It's like as if somebody was there pushing back between. And he's like, this isn't right. Then he came the other side of me, pushed. And then the same thing happened on the other side. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? And he had like a few friends that were maybe, in air quotes, more spiritually in tune or inclined. And he said to them, like, what do you think this is? And they said, oh, maybe a being or an entity's attached themselves to him, or maybe it's just energy. Like, there's a lot of powerful energy in Sedona. Maybe that happened. So we just kind of did some like affirmations and maybe some, you could call them prayers, and just said if there's any like negative energy, just like go away or be released. And nothing like that happened again there. But ever since that day, my whole life has just accelerated in the right direction. And I still don't know to this day, was it Sedona? Was it meditation? Was it right time, right place? Was it meant to be? Who knows? But like I've said to people before, I think I've always been a spiritual person, but it just took going to Sedona and having those experiences for that to be unlocked. And since that day, I've found all of these spiritual practices. I've realized that I thought I was healthy, but I wasn't mentally, physically, and spiritually. I wasn't really looking after myself. So I've gone all in on working on myself and going deep on myself to be the best version of myself I can be. And I'm nowhere near perfect. I make mistakes. I F up. I have bad days. But I'm on such a great trajectory, and I've took this amazing path that has been truly life-changing. And so many amazing, great things have happened to me since that day in Sedona. A lot of bad shit's happened as well, but now I realize the lessons that it's showing me when it is kind of quote unquote bad stuff or negative stuff happens. I kind of take the lessons from it. I'm aware of it. But I'd say that was the biggest turning point, was in Sedona. So I could have just said it happened in Sedona rather than taking you through that, but it wouldn't have been as interesting.
But the things I think is so interesting, because obviously we've had obviously Mikey talking about his experience. Obviously his was psychedelic based. I've had Zach, again, he has an experience, again, psychedelic based. But then for you to be saying you have that very similar sort of experience through meditation, and that's the only experience I've ever had with stuff, is like going through stuff through meditation wise. I think it's interesting you made a point there about how you think you've always been a spiritual being. I fully believe that we are spiritual beings, like 100%. Every single one of us. But the problem is, I think we spoke about this on your podcast when you interviewed me, is the biggest thing for me is that we're somehow suppressed in some way, shape or form. And I think that every single person knows that they're meant for bigger and better things. It's just they don't really know how to tap into it. And again, I fully believe that the human body, like the consciousness, is the information gets passed down to it. We're essentially like antennas to download this information, but most of us don't actually do it. So I feel like what you experienced there was this almost downloading of information. You sort of then saw your potential, and then you get addicted to it, and then you go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly what it is. And I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I think we all have the potential to tap into it, and we all have these special gifts and abilities that we come into this, whatever this is, with. And it's just about, as you said, tapping into them, harnessing it, downloading it, however you want to label it. But I'm 100% sure that we're all capable of it, and we're capable of amazing and great things, and me and you and Mikey are living proof of that, and many others.
Have you found, obviously, being married, is she on the same path as you? Is she not on the same path? Is she supportive? Because I feel like this is one of the things where a lot of people struggle sometimes with this, because they want to go down a route, but they don't necessarily have a supportive partner. So obviously, I don't know the dynamic between two of you. I only met you for the first time yesterday. Is she supportive? Is she not? Is she into it? Is she not? How does that dynamic work with you two? And
Sarah's the most supportive person I've ever met in my life. She'll back me all the way, 100%, no matter what. She's always got my back, always supporting me. But she's spiritual. If you asked her, she'd probably say, "Oh no, I'm not into that kind of stuff." And she doesn't meditate, she doesn't journal, but she is spiritually inclined. But she just I wouldn't say she's the opposite to me, because we connect on so many different things and so many levels. But with Sarah, she'll just she's so blunt. She'll just tell you how it is. Like if she'll be like, I like use crystals and stuff like that. She'll be like, fucking crystals, like what a waste of time kind of thing. But I get that, and that's her vibe, and that's her journey. And I don't judge her and say, well, I wish you'd get into this, and I'm ahead of you spiritually. There's none of that. We're just she's got her stuff that she's into, I've got mine, and we support each other and back each other all the way with it, without judgment.
how do you find that works? Because I feel a lot of people have the opposite of that. So they're trying to improve their spiritual path, but their partner's not into it. So then they almost feel like they can't go down that route, if that makes sense. So like, let's say for example, like I'm into crystals, my partner's not. My crystal's saying, you're a fucking weirdo with your crystals.
Yeah.
And then I might be like, oh, well actually to please my partner, I'm going to stop doing my thing with crystals. How have you, and what advice would you give to people that want to go down this route where they don't necessarily have a supportive partner? Because again, obviously you've got a good dynamic with that, but some people don't. Now again, we're not talking about the dynamics of a relationship and should you be in a relationship with someone you can't communicate with. So let's not go down that rabbit hole. But I mean, in the sense of, how would you get people to actually keep on their practice when they potentially don't have the friends, or if they're single, they don't have the support network around them?
Firstly, starts with honesty, and we spoke about this on the podcast, my podcast, when you came on. So you've got to be honest with each other. You've got to be almost radically honest. You can't, if you want a strong relationship with someone, you can't really hide things. You've got to be honest with each other, and tell that person, this is why I'm doing it, and these are the reasons why I'm doing it. So I'm meditating because it helps me with X, Y, and Z, or it helps me achieve this, and this time here is why I'm meditating, and this is the time I'm going to do it. So honesty is a good starting point, I think. And then which leads into boundaries, like having boundaries with each other. So yeah, this is the boundary of where we're at with these things, whether it's spirituality, whether it's money, whether it's going out on the piss or whatever. These are the boundaries, and you're not going to break those boundaries or cross them. You're going to respect them, and respect the individual, and respect the boundary, and work within those parameters of that. And I think if you are truly in tune with each other, and you truly do love each other, then the other person will respect that and overstand that.
Because I think with it, it makes you a better version of you. So it makes you a better version of you. It actually helps the relationship.
Of course.
But I find a lot of people, they let's say for example with clients of mine, where you say, right, I just want you to start reading before we go to bed or something, and if the partner shoo-shoos it and says, oh, it's stupid, why are you doing that, they just won't do it. Rather than just explaining, well, I'm doing this because of this, it helps me in this way, can you respect me? They just don't have that conversation. They're not comfortable having that conversation and setting those boundaries. So the biggest thing I say to people is they've got to protect their own energy. So you don't worry about your partner's energy, you worry about your energy, and what can you do to look after your energy? And then you set your boundaries to make sure the energy is safe. Then you've got to have that communication. So I was just very curious that there wasn't anything I was particularly wanting to talk about, but just when you talk about you and Sarah, I just thought, well, I don't know if she's into it or not. And if she's not, it's just something that popped into my head.
There's one thing I want to tag onto it is Sarah gets me. So she understands me, she gets me, she knows, I feel she knows me better than anyone has ever known me. She understands and she gets it. So if I say I'm going to go in the bedroom and do 45 minutes of breath work, or I'm going to watch a video, or I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to go on a course for my self-development, or I'm going to go to one of these men's circles that I've been going to and talk about mental health with 8 other guys, she gets it. She knows why I'm doing it and what the reasoning is behind it. Almost as I say, almost telepathically, almost subliminally, she knows what's going on. But if your partner doesn't get it, then that's where, as you just said beautifully, you've got to explain it, and you've got to explain the reasons why you're doing it and what it means to you. And I'm going to just be brutal. And if they're not on that, if they're not going to get on board with it, then maybe it's not you're not with the right person.
But listen, I've said that, you laugh about this. This is why I've been single for so long. Because my biggest thing is like you said there about someone getting you, like that is ultimately my thing. Because I am quite weird in my ways. I say weird. I don't think I'm weird, but I can see how people would think I'm weird. Again, same with you. Like people would probably class you as weird with the stuff that you're into and how you're dressing, but it's you. Yeah. It's your uniqueness. It's your journey that you're on. Like my weirdness, for some people was weird. For some people it's completely normal. Like we've all three of us in this room have got their own unique styles. So now when I'm dating, talking to people, I'm like, I just don't think you don't want to get me. Does that make sense? Am I making sense with that? I feel like a lot of people don't want to get the other person. They just want it to be like, well, this is my way. You've got to fit into my way. I don't think that's how a relationship should be. It should be two people that are sort of flowing and in unison and be like, exactly. I fully get you, you fully get me. We're flowing. We're not joined to the hip. You do you and support each other in each way. And I think that's such a magical thing to have. And obviously when I met Sarah yesterday for the first time as well, like you could see the guys got a good dynamic and good relationship there. I just didn't want to, I was very curious of the dynamic of it because she doesn't quote unquote look spiritual. And I know there's no way to look spiritual, but just how she was and how you are, just like, I was just very curious of if she was into it, and if she wasn't, how does it work? And it's good to know that you've got that trust, the fact that she understands you, she respects you. I think that's a massive thing to have in a relationship, and it's key.
Definitely, yeah, you nailed it, 100%. And I'm glad you've asked me about this stuff because not many people touch on it. But even now, I've just bumped into one of your coaches, Stephen. I've not seen him in probably 10 years, and he's just looking at it through the lens of social media. Not actually seeing me in person, but he's just like, you two look incredible for each other. Like you can just see it, like you're made for each other. And this is what we was talking about earlier, is that when you start to be this way and be yourself and get aligned with who you truly are in your fullest version of yourself, and then you get that with another person, people will just spot it a mile off. It's like you've got this kind of aura around you and this vibe that you put out, maybe without even knowing it, and people just spot it. And so Stephen's not the first person that said to me like, oh, you look so happy and you're a changed person and you're a changed man and you're not who you were 10 years ago. And I just love that and I respect that, but I've had to do the work to get there.
I've got a funny story about that. So I've been my barber for 5 years, go see the same guy. He started off working.
Did you get a receipt? No, joking.
So listen, I can't remember that's like when you went to go see a barber. I'm being ripped about my haircut from a guy that looks like Jesus. You see his Mikey? Fuck's sake, motherfucker. And why do you keep getting people on the podcast with better beards than me? Fuck you, Mikey. So yeah, people that know, Mikey's the one that set me and Ali up. Sort of dating, well, could be. What was I going to say? You've lost track of thought. That's it, my barber. So 5 years. And boom, this guy, like, we basically all grown together. Like, he started out at this place, working with this guy, growing up, and he's done all these amazing things, and now he's back to his own place. And it must have been about 8 months ago. It's just him and his mate now that run this place. It was just us three in there. And as I was leaving, he turned around to me and says, do you know what? I used to fucking hate it when you used to come in here. He said, you'd be a bit of a dick. And he's like, I love it when you come in now. I look forward to, like, when Josh says you're coming, my Bob's called Josh, big shout out, Joshua Callahan. He's just like, I love it when you come in. It's like, just everything about you, like, I love hearing about what you're doing, like your energy, your positivity. And I was like, that was amazing to hear. Because like, some people get offended by that. And I was like, and because he turned around and said, I hope that you didn't get offended. I said, no, because I was a dick, but I was completely lost as a human being. So I'm not surprised you didn't like me coming in, and because all I'd be talking about was shagging girls. That I was just completely empty and shallow as a person. And the fact that he actually noticed that I changed, I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So I understand that when you start to grow and develop. But how did that look for you then? So obviously I know you went to America and you had that experience. But then coming back to the UK, how have you then harnessed your like spiritual practice? And what advice would you give to people that are looking to actually go down that route? Because it's such a big, open, expansive thing. There's so much information out there. So obviously I know you're only speaking your truth. Yeah. But for you, what did that actually look like of actually developing this sort of spiritual path and finding yourself?
I was quite blessed in a way that I had this friend that he'd gone, he tried to commit suicide. He tried to stab himself to death, and I think that was when he kind of had his spiritual awakening, you could say. So I was quite blessed in the fact that I had almost a spiritual mentor, or somebody that could show me the ropes and say, oh, check this out. But I've always been very good at taking on stuff and then doing my research and discerning stuff and making my own mind up and forming my own opinions. I've always been like that ever since I was a kid. So he gave me tools and stuff to look at and maybe reading material and whatnot. So that helped.
What reading material did you start off with?
That's a good question. I think one of the very first books I read was Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements.
Oh, brilliant
Yeah,
book.
I think it was.
And
some of the Eckhart Tolle stuff as well.
You said on your podcast, books. I don't know why I didn't go there. Because those books are brilliant. The other one as well, the Book of Knowledge. You read that one? That's a really good book as well. I got like a little box set. There's 3 of them. Yeah. Honestly, that's a great book.
So books like that, that they were really useful. And then in 2016, about the time I was looking to open my own gym, I came across another lady, Carly Mellors Blair. She's based out in Arnold's in Nottingham, same as us. But she'd been working with this coach in Atlanta, in America. So she put me on to him, and I decided after an initial consultation with him that I wanted to work with him because I was going down this spiritual route, and he was very much, you can't work with me if you don't meditate. So the first question he asked me was like, do you meditate? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, good, because you can't work with me if you don't meditate. So I was like, right, this guy's the real deal. So I did 7 months of coaching with him, and that kind of accelerated things as well, because he put me on to more, you could say out there stuff, but it's not out there, but stuff like astrology, meditation, vision boarding, gratitude, this kind of stuff. So that really helped as well, having a spiritual coach. So I had a mentor, a coach, and then it was just about going within. So using that meditative practice to go within myself and to learn more about myself, but then connect with the ether or the universe or the higher power or my higher self, or however you want to label it up, going into that and just making sure that practice was regular, and then getting those downloads, getting that information, learning more about myself, becoming more aware, and then using that stuff to my advantage. So I'd say a mentor, a coach, and just actually immersing myself in spiritual practices helped me to grow this spiritual essence or this spiritual nature that I have. Yeah. I
think it was you that I saw on social media said about spirituality, and you can be spiritual and not.
Yeah.
And you can still drink, you can still do this, you can still do that. I think that's a big thing as well. Like, people.
You can't put labels on things.
No.
Sorry to interrupt you, mate.
No, you're right.
You can't. Everyone wants to put labels on stuff, whatever it is, sexuality, spirituality, religion. They just want to put labels on stuff. And to me, what do labels do? Labels create division. And we're already divided enough. We don't need any more division in life. We want to bring ourselves together. We want to come together. We need to come together now more than we've ever had to in the last probably, I don't know, 5,000 years maybe. We've got to come together now. Not before it's too late, but we need to be connected, more connected. We need to be more one. We need to be more united. And this is just my personal opinion, but I think labels, they encourage division. They encourage part in people. Part in people. And this is a big problem in our industry, in health and fitness. Health, fitness, wellness, spirituality, those kind of realms that me and you move in. It's a big problem because we're trying to label up fat loss is this, weight loss is this, gym training is this, spirituality is this, yoga's this, and if you're not in that, then you're not that. And it's just fucking ridiculous. And also, like, with egos, like, there's too many egos in health and fitness and in spirituality to some extent.
I'd say more so. Me and Mikey spoke about this.
Yeah.
Like, the more you go into the spirituality thing and you try and ram it down people's throats, people's egos become so inflated.
Definitely. And also, people are probably going to give me some hate for this, but there's a lot of fake people. There's a lot of people that talk the talk and they don't walk the walk. And I've said this before. I said it on Mikey's podcast. I think everything that I say whether it's in person or it's on social media, if I say it, I'm fucking doing it. So if I say I'm meditating, I'm meditating every day. If I'm journaling, I'm journaling. If I'm cold showering, I'm cold showering. If I've got a morning routine, I've got a morning routine. And if I haven't, I won't say it because it's a lie, and like I'm not going to BS. So I've learned that as well. Whereas before, I used to be a bit of a social chameleon. So I'd like put on, like you said earlier about masks and stuff, I'd put on different kind of suits in different environments with different people because I thought I had to do that to fit in.
Yep.
And as soon as I started like stepping into who I really am and being my truest self, long hair, jazzy jacket, beard, crystals, whatever, my truest self, I didn't need to do that. I don't need to be a chameleon anymore. I can just be myself, and you take it or leave it. And I'm walking the walk and talking the talk both ways. I'm not going to say I'm doing something that I'm not. I live it, I breathe it, I embody it. Yes, there's probably some habits and some stuff that I do that isn't benefiting my health. But if you look at how healthy I am now, however you want to label or describe health, if you take it from where I am now to where I am probably 10 years ago, it's chalk and cheese.
It's all on a spectrum.
It's completely different.
It's all on a spectrum.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing. You're not trying to be sat up on a mountain being all preachy. At the minute, all you're doing is just living your life the best way that you know how and what works for you. So what works for you? Again, I know we had a conversation about this yesterday. Like, you still drink alcohol. Cool. Well, if that's your vice, that's your vice. Like, it's not an issue as long as you're not going around
as
being
long as it's not affecting the work.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. As long as you're not going around like fucking beating up Sarah or fucking shouting racist slurs. You're just literally someone that likes to have a drink. Cool. So what's wrong with that? But people, you can't do that and be spiritual.
Bollocks.
Mate, you can swear on this podcast,
know,
right?
yeah. I've said swear words already. I don't know what I'm on about.
But I think that's the biggest thing with it. And
you can't swear and be spiritual.
but this thing I said when me and Mikey were talking before about it, like you see a lot of people that, like I said, they are not. They're doing it for the wrong reasons, especially when it comes to mental health. Not necessarily spirituality, but mental health. They're in it and doing it and talking about it for the wrong reasons. And then you've got people that, again, want to be spiritual and haven't even walked the journey. They've just read a book or books, not really applied it and just regurgitating information. But they haven't gone through it enough to be like, right, you're here, I'm here. I can guide you through this process because I've gone through it. But then you then know you still have got a long way to go. A lot of people walk a little bit, claim they know everything, and then try and tell everyone, I know everything, let me show you the path. But they ain't got a fucking clue.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. The more you go down into spirituality, the more you realise that you don't know. Like, the more you go down into it, the more that you realise that you don't know anything.
Yeah.
And all you're trying to do is just guide people. You're not telling people because you know that you can't tell the people. You're just kind of suggesting and being a bit of a guide rather than being like, I'm fucking amazing, you're shit, do as I say and you'll be good. Because it's not about that. It's about, as you said, learning, implementing it, and as you're implementing it, passing on the information that you're doing from first-hand experience that you know can help other people, and then take it or leave it. Because, again, something that I do, you may not do. Something that you do, I may not do.
Absolutely.
Some things resonate with some people and others don't with others. That's why, again, I thought I'm going to get Mikey on as well, because, again, me and Mikey are very similar, very different. Me and you, very similar, very different. And that's the thing. Me and you seem to be saying the same information, but we say it very, very differently.
Yeah.
Cool. Because how you say it might not resonate with people. How I say it might not resonate with people. Cool. How Mikey says it might be perfect. Brilliant. And that's what it's all about. It's about making sure, because that's what I say about mental health and spirituality. Once you get it, you get it.
Yeah.
And you see through the bullshit. I call it coat hanger.
Mental health is spirituality, and spirituality is mental health.
100%. But once you understand, all it is a coat hanger. Once you know it's the coat hanger, you know what it looks like and what it does. All you then see is people are putting their own clothes on this coat hanger and trying to charge a lot of money for their own clothes. But when you get rid of the clothes and realise it's just a coat hanger, that's it. And the coat hanger is the coat hanger. No matter who's fucking saying it, it's a coat hanger. It's made of fucking wood. It's got a metal peg on it. That's it. But that's fundamentally what it is, isn't it? That's all it is. Once you understand its essence, that's it. And then you can articulate that however you want and put your own clothes on it. But the problem is people are trying to force other people to wear their own clothes. Does that make sense? I feel like, do you know what I mean? You get talking, mate. I feel like I should go off on one.
No, it's good.
It's like I'm not. I did this when Mikey interviewed me on his podcast. I feel like when I go off on one in certain situations with certain people, I feel like I'm not even in control of my body.
I forgot what we was even started.
Talking about spirituality.
Yeah, this we started with. But that's the beauty of this, and it's you will just go where you need to go, and that's why I love having these conversations, and why there needs to be more of it, and why we need to speak more and do more stuff like this, because it'll go where it's meant to go. I believe everything happens for a reason, and I don't believe there's any coincidences.
Agreed. Have you ever struggled with mental health? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Yeah, so I'd say I'd struggled with it most in 2 phases of my life. So I'd say just when it was coming to the end of my last relationship with my ex before I met Sarah, I'd say I was struggling quite a bit then, because I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. I was in a transitional phase with what I wanted to do career-wise as well. So I was a little bit messed up mentally. I just found out as well that my dad was having an affair. So that was all kind of quite intense. That kind of beginning of 2015 time. So that would probably be the first time that I'd say I was struggling a little bit. And then last year in the pandemic, there was a couple of times, and Sarah will tell you about this, where I was in floods of tears, and I was just like, what's the point, kind of thing. I was just felt a bit disillusioned. I couldn't reopen the gym. I was doing a lot of stuff which I know you shouldn't do, like comparison. I was going on to social media accounts and be like, oh, well, they're doing this and I'm a piece of shit, and like, why can't I have what they have? And the worst things that we don't all know, but when you kind of get into this stuff, when you're working on yourself and you become more spiritually inclined, or just not spiritually inclined, just working on yourself, you know you shouldn't be doing this stuff, but we're still all guilty of it. And social media can be toxic, so I was kind of getting sucked into that. And yeah, I was just a bit like, oh, what's the point? And then that was still arising a little bit this year as well. And I said when I went onto Mikey's podcast that about 8 or 9 weeks ago, I've started working with a psychologist, which I told you about yesterday. And she's a positive psychologist. And I feel like I'm in a similar position that I was back in 2015, where I'm not relationship, but with work, I'm in a bit of a transition. My gym's been going for 5 years. I'm looking at what I want to do long term. And that's why I went to see her, is to get a kind of clarity and get alignment with what I want to be doing long term, which she's really, really helping me with. I've only had 3 sessions with her, and she's kind of, I can't believe the work and the progress that I've made in 3 years. So I went to see her because I was in that mindset of, I don't give a shit. What's the point? The gym's going to fail. This kind of negative spiral of self-talk, even though I'd spent the last 5 years or 6 years trying to get myself out of that. So yeah, I went to see, that was kind of catalyst for going to see her, because I was in that kind of that negative mindset of being like, what's the point? So yeah, there have been a couple of times where I've really, really struggled from a mental aspect. And when I was trying to sell the house back in 2015, I was kind of having a lot of sleepless nights, but that was more of a financial aspect more than kind of a mental mindset kind of thing. Do
you find the psychologist help more than the spiritual coach, or is it very different? Because obviously very similar times in your life.
I tell you, it's different but the same, because she's very spiritual. Very, very spiritual. Like, so she's classically trained psychologist and a criminologist as well. So she's actually worked with like some of the worst criminals in the UK from a psychological aspect. So she's a lecturer at NTU in criminology. But she's a very, very, very spiritual person. So that's why we hit it off originally, because she came on my podcast and we just kind of hit, like us 3 have done when we first met for the first time, as if you've known each other for years and you just have that instant connection. So yeah, she's coming at it from a very different angle. So I'd say they're similar but different, if that makes any sense.
Both of them, like I said, at very similar times in your life.
Yeah.
That's why I was just wondering, like, they're essentially the same but different, if that makes sense. Because I think a lot of people, we spoke about this before, like, sometimes you need to reach out. The biggest thing is you need to reach out and ask for help. And it said this on your podcast, it's asking the right person. So right now, at 2 times, you've been screaming out for something. And obviously the first coach was like very, very heavily in spirituality, because that's what you needed at that point. Now this person isn't so much focused on it. It's a psychological aspect with the dose of it as well, because it still needs to be in there, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's very curious that both times when you needed help in your life, you have reached out as well. Yeah. So it's just very curious, because obviously I know we spoke about that a lot when I was on your podcast talking about that. Was there a lot of the stuff that you struggled with during the lockdown to do with the gym? Because I know that during this first lockdown, especially for me, my head rolled off, because I have a deep fear of going backwards, of losing everything that I've created, but it being my fault. So for me, when it came to the first lockdown, not the second one, the first one, my head rolled off a bit because I was afraid I was going to lose everything, even though it wasn't my fault. Because if it was my fault, I could accept it and I could do something about it. My problem was it wasn't my fault and I couldn't do anything about it. So I struggled with the lack of control. So was yours to do with the gym? Was it lack of control? What do you think did that?
No, I think I said this to you yesterday, and people might think I'm bonkers for saying this, but with the journey that I've been on and with everything that's happened to me in the last 5 or 6 years, and a lot of it is related to the gym, I don't have an emotional connection to the gym that I own anymore. I mean, it might sound crazy to people listening to this, but if the gym works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And either way is cool for me. So it wasn't that fear of losing. It might have been for Sarah. I think Sarah, particularly in the first lockdown, she got quite upset, like, we're going to lose everything, blah, blah, blah. For me, I wasn't on that vibe. I think for me, I wasn't too bad in the first one, but the second, towards the end of the first one, and then definitely the second lockdown. I think for me, it was, for the first time in my life, I can't see, or I don't really know what I'm going to be doing in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time. Whereas when I worked at Virgin, it was build a client base. When I left Virgin, it was get my own business off the ground, make that successful, get fully booked with that, potentially take on staff. Then when I was kind of like 2-3 years into running my own PT business, it was like, okay, I can see myself having a gym, and that gym being busy and fully booked and a great community and everything. And then I think I kind of forgot all of that work I'd done and all those things I'd put in place that had allowed that to come to fruition. And so I was at a point where I'm like, oh shit, I'm 34, 35. I'm 35 next year. I'm 34. What am I doing when I'm 45? What am I doing when I'm 50? So I think it was a bit of a shock, like, oh, for the first time in my life, I don't really know what I'm going to be doing long term. And that's why I thought I need to get help. So I reached out to the psychologist, and she's kind of unlocked a few things. And you mentioned this on my podcast, and I wanted to say this again and reiterate this, is that we have all the answers within us. We all have all the answers. And I think ultimately deep down, we all know that. But sometimes you need somebody that's got the keys, or the skeleton key to unlock
someone that's
it.
not emotionally involved in it as well.
Exactly.
Obviously with Sarah, she might know the answer, but she's emotionally, financially
and she was backing me all the way. She was like, sometimes she's like, slap around the face like, Ali, you're being a dick, snap out of it. Sometimes she's like, arm around your shoulder, supporting. But I think it was at the point where, because we're always in each other's pocket, because we run the gym together and we're inseparable basically, that she was giving me all the support that she had the skills and the know-how to do, but I needed that little bit, something different and a little bit extra. But because of all the work that I'd done, and because I've had coaching before, I knew that what I needed was coaching or guidance in whatever form that was going to come in. And it just so happened that a few things that had aligned. I'd seen her a few weeks before, and we was meant to record a podcast together. And the podcast ended up turning, it wasn't a podcast. The mics didn't even go on. I didn't even hit record. It ended up turning into, she wouldn't say it was a therapy session, but it felt like therapy. Yeah. And we was there for 2 hours. She didn't charge me a penny. And I was in tears pretty much the whole time. And she brought up a lot of stuff from everything we've spoken about earlier, which is like childhood stuff, childhood trauma. And when I say trauma, it can be like micro trauma, it doesn't have to be macro trauma. She brought up all this stuff. I got upset, but I felt like I had a massive release. And you said it earlier on my podcast, is that this stuff, this mental stuff or trauma or whatever, eventually it'll wear you down, it'll wear you out, and you become so tired. And I think this year I was at that point where I'd spent so long not being fully aligned with my truest self in my fullest power, and not doing what I am meant to be doing as like if you want to call it divine higher purpose, not really doing that I was so worn down by it that I needed to get that help. And she's made me realize a lot of things, unlock some stuff, and allowing me to step into the truest, fullest version of myself. Not that I haven't been for the last 5 or 6 years, but there's certain traits that I've been doing that have probably held me back from where I'm not even say where I want to be, where I should be.
Yeah. So how?
Whoa, that was deep, wasn't it?
So how could you? Let's say you could go back then, and obviously I know we've only had 3 sessions of this, but let's say you've got listeners to this that feel like they're in that situation. They feel very stuck, and they feel like they should be doing more, could be doing more, should be somewhere else. What advice would you give to them on that? Because obviously you've been through this twice now. Obviously both times you've gone through getting a coach. So what advice would you give to people then that feel like they're in that situation where they're a bit like, they feel like they're hitting a bit of a brick wall, they feel like there's just something that's got to be removed? What advice would you give to people that's on that?
I'd start firstly with honest and open questions with yourself. And you could start just by simply asking yourself some questions in your head. You don't even have to write it down. I'd probably do that first, then I'd write it down. And then that's going to give you kind of a good starting point. So, like when we're working with clients, we'll do your stats, your measurements, so circumferences, body fat percentage, weight, all that kind of stuff. This is the same thing with your thoughts and with your mental state. You can get a gauge of where you're currently at by simply asking yourself some questions, but don't just go to the surface level. You've got to go deeper. So, okay, why? Strip it away, peel back that onion, get them answers, then get it down on paper. And then that gives you a kind of starting point of where you're at. And then based off of that, you can probably make the decisions of where you go to next. Is that I need to read a book or consume a podcast or consume a piece of content on YouTube that's going to help me with this stuckness that I'm having? Or do I need to go a step further and seek out a professional that's going to help? And I always think when you can, if you truly need it, just get the help, because you can only, I say we've got all the answers, but you can only do so much on your own. Like you need somebody to help support you, spot your blind spots, call you out on your own BS, all that kind of stuff. All the stuff that we do for our clients and we know helps them. You need that yourself, and you can never be too proud or too egotistical to think that you don't need help and you've got everything figured out, because as you said, the more you figure out, the more you realize that you've got nothing figured out, and nobody's got it figured out. Elon Musk, all these people that you aspire to, Tony Robbins, whoever, they haven't got it figured out. None of them have. None of us have.
Because there's no manual for life, though. That's the biggest thing. Like, no one has got the answers. All people have got is their own experience.
Yeah.
Whether that's practical experience, learnt experience, like whatever it is, like they've read something in a book, like the best person in the world, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Tony Robbins, whoever it is, like you said there, like they literally are only giving information based off what they know.
Yeah.
But then they're just winging it because they don't know what's coming. And that's all it is. And again, it goes back to like the universal power we spoke about before. It's like the energy, the universal mind, whatever you want to call it, like it has all the answers. Anything that ever will be and everything that ever has been is up in there.
Yeah.
So they've just had the ability to tap into it and they've experienced some stuff, and then they're passing on their knowledge to you. But no one has it. No one has the answers. No one knows why we're here. No one does. Like literally not a single person does. So no one knows the answer. I think that's the biggest thing right now with social media and stuff like that. People can feel very, very inferior because people are claiming to have the answers and to have got it. And they will have it to an extent, but they will not have the whole it, if that makes sense, because you cannot ever have the whole it. Like life is not a game that you complete, if that makes sense. So you may have someone that's a millionaire. Brilliant. They've completed it to a certain extent of being a millionaire, but have they actually completed it of happiness? Are they fully happy? Are they truly fulfilled? Some people genuinely truly are, like your Tony Robbins, for example. I genuinely believe he is truly happy and content, but a lot of people aren't. It just seems to be now it's a game of who can talk the loudest about what they've got. Does that make sense? Does that make sense with that? And I feel that's the biggest thing.
Social media is the worst for it. And what people have got to realise about social media is you're just seeing little snapshots of people's best bits. I mean, it is getting better. I think people are starting to be more transparent, more open and honest, more real on social media, but there's still
it's only it's only as real as they're still showing.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? This is my thing with it, like people being raw, authentic. We spoke about this on your podcast. We were saying then about do people sometimes fake it? Because sometimes now I feel people are being transparent for the sake of being transparent.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like saying that it's like people are showing the behind the scenes, but again, they're only showing the behind the scenes of the stuff they want to show behind the scenes. Because let's be fucking honest, if I'm having a bad day, I'm not exactly me fucking getting a camera and being like, oh, having a bad day, because I'm not, because my head's in a fucking space of I don't want to fucking be here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's a case of after I've snapped out of it, I can talk about it. I've had a bad day. but I'm not showing you my actual bad day, because the only time you could have that is if Mikey's walking around me 24/7 and literally video recording me. And again, so sometimes you do get that authenticness on TV shows and stuff, but most of the time it's not. Like, you're still only showing someone's vulnerability of what you're allowed to say. I think me and Mikey had a conversation about something. Like, Mikey only knows me. Like, I'm very honest and open. Mikey knows pretty much everything about me, but he still only knows what I share with him.
Exactly.
Even though it's a lot. Like, what we're gonna do, I'm trying to fucking think of an example. I'm not gonna randomly say to him, "Oh yeah, Mikey, by the way, do you know when I was 3 years old, I did this," or do you know what I mean? It's not relevant. Or yesterday, Mikey, I had this thought, and then this thought and that thought. I'm only showing, "Oh, by the way, Mikey, yesterday I felt a bit shit."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're not ever going to get the whole thing.
And I said this on Mikey's podcast, and I've said it on pretty much every podcast I've been on. That's why you are the most important person. Nobody else. You only know yourself as well as you know yourself. You'll know yourself the best and better than anyone else will. But you've got to, in my opinion, you've got to learn about yourself. You've got to strip away these layers to really find out who you truly are. But you've got to look after yourself and do the work on yourself first, and take care of number one first. Because if you're the best version of yourself, the truest version of yourself, the healthiest, the happiest version of yourself, then that's going to radiate out to everyone else, and you're going to be able to serve, give to other people in a fuller version of yourself and in a more authentic way. And not that I think the world's a bad place, but the world will be a better place. So I think people get caught up in trying to put everybody else before themselves, or do this, or compare themselves with others before they've done the work on themselves first. You've got to look after number one first. And as I've said on numerous podcasts before, it's not being selfish, it's selfless. Looking after yourself first is the most selfless thing you can do as a human being on this, whatever this is.
And that's, I think you've hit in the head there something as well. The world is not a bad place.
No.
We're told the world's a bad place.
Yes.
And we're forced to think that people, again, we talked about the division we spoke about earlier on, like people are this, people are that. But inherently, people are good. I fully believe that people are inherently good, where nowadays we're basically told that people are inherently got a bit of bad inside them. I don't believe that they do at all. I think people are inherently good. No one is born with any bad traits inside them. They're all good human beings. I think the biggest thing nowadays is that we're living in a state of fear that people are arseholes, people are always going to stab us in the back, and it's not always the case. Like, there is some people out there you've got to have your guard up against, but you can't go around your life thinking and worrying about what ifs, and what if this person screws me over, what if this person isn't. Just go with the flow, as long as you
because then you're not without going too airy-fairy, but you're not, when you're like that, you're not being present, and you're not being. One of the best things, again, you can do is just be here. Like, we're here now, and we're not thinking about, I'm having a jacket potato for dinner, or that twat cut me off earlier. We're not that. We're just here having a conversation, talking. We're in the moment. We're just being. And you can call that going with the flow. That's another way to label it up. Said don't put labels on things, and I'm labeling. Yeah, so go with the flow, just be. That's the best way to be. But as soon as you start kind of, oh well, what if this happens, and what if X, Y, and Z, or what if the government do this, or what if there's another lockdown, or whatever the case may be, you're not now. You're thinking about something that might not even happen. And then if you're anxious or whatnot, or worried, you kind of thinking about the past of usually negative stuff that's happened, and you can't do fuck all about it. So it is one of the most difficult things, particularly in the modern world. It's the most difficult thing, or one of the most difficult things, to be present. But when you can just be, it's the most powerful thing, most liberating thing that you can do in your life.
Completely agree. I feel like what we need to do is mash up both our podcasts together.
Yeah, man.
I feel like the both podcasts we did. You know, with both
Why
of them
don't we do a
back to
joint
back.
one?
Yeah,
triple one.
I feel like there's a lot of information, like the information you gave, the information I gave. When you combine that together, so like I said,
just mirror mine on yours, and vice versa. We'll just mirror it on our show.
It's a very interesting thing. Because like the information you're sharing there, it's all the same stuff, and it sort of ties on to what I tagged into as well, and vice versa. Like some of the stuff that you've said, like it's honestly it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I want to say as well. I mean, you're not really asked me about this, but I'm gonna just share it with people as well. Is that people might see my story and see social media and listen to me and think, oh well, he's got it, like he's got it wicked, he's got his own gym, he's married and da da da. The last 5 or 6 years, me and Sarah have been to hell and back with that gym. We've had so many things happen. I'd say mainly from a financial perspective, come close to the whole place shutting down numerous times.
Was that due to the lockdowns?
Before. I don't know how much. I mean, I can go into it. But
because I didn't talk about it.
So we basically started off with a business partner, and it didn't work out. He kind of came out of the business, and wasn't his fault. It was equally both of our fault. Was probably both a bit naive. Didn't really know what we was going into. Kind of thought we had everything figured out when we didn't, and made some very bad financial decisions. And yeah, the gym was really struggling financially from day dot. He kind of came out of the business for one reason or another. Won't really go into that, but I'll probably go into it another day. And myself and Sarah took on the kind of the business, and then we was really, really struggling, and it was a challenge. And my ex-business partner was threatening to take us to court and all this kind of stuff. Loads of stuff. I mean, you could write a whole book on it. We had bailiffs coming into the gym, like, I'm going to take all the kit away because we'd not paid a bill and stuff like that. I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, all this kind of stuff. And the one thing, this is what I'll say, the one thing that stopped us from probably having a mental breakdown, because if that would have been me prior to Sedona, I would have had a mental breakdown. 100%. In 2017, 2018 particularly, I would have 100% had a mental breakdown. But because I'd done all this work and because I was so strong, it allowed us to navigate that. But the one thing that allowed us to navigate it more than anything is having a purpose. We knew what the purpose of that space was, of what we were trying to do. And every time we was in the office crying, or we thought we can't go on, or whatever, we're going to liquidate the company or whatnot, we just hung on to that. Why are we doing it? We're doing it because we want to help people to be healthier, to be happier, to live longer lives. And we kind of had that in the back of our head all the time. And that saw us through. And that was, you said it earlier about like lighthouses. That was kind of our lighthouse, our guiding star, North Star, however you want to call it, that helped us overcome or get around all of that shit. And I, again, going back to help, I knew we needed help, and I knew we wouldn't survive without help. So I tapped into my network, and this is another thing I'm massive on, is connecting people and networking. Mm-hmm. I love bringing people together, and I love making new friends and meeting new people. I've loved that since I was a little one. I reached into my network, and I was like, I need help. So I reached out to a guy from the council who put me onto a few people, who then put me onto the guy that's mine and Sarah's business partner now, a new business partner, who's, I guess in air quotes, like a silent investor. And it was just, again, I don't believe in coincidences, divine timing, however you want to label it. He just sold a business for like close to 200 grand. He had, this sounds crazy, but like play money. And he was like, I want to help you guys, and I want to help you to stay alive and grow the business. And I believe in you. That's more. That was the thing that like really almost, well, it did make me cry and like hit me hard in the heart, is I believe in you and Sarah. You've had some bad luck, you've made some bad decisions and whatnot, but I believe in you both because you've put this effort in so far. You've got it to this point, 3. I think he came on board in 2018, so we'd had it nearly 2 years, because it was late 2018. We'd had it nearly 2 years, and he's like, look, you've managed to keep it going this long, when it probably didn't look from maybe like a financial and cash flow forecast perspective that we were going to be able to carry on. And he's like, I believe in you, and he invested some money in it. Obviously we had to give like percentages away. I'm not going to really get into the nitty gritty of that, but he came on board, and then since then we've been able to progress. And then the global pandemic hit, and then that was another roadblock. But that's why when the global pandemic hit, I was just breezy, because everything that we'd been through leading into that I felt had prepared us for that moment. So I'm talking from everything that had happened with the gym, but also everything that I'd been through on my own personal journey. When that hit, when Boris got on the stage on, what was it, the 12th of March or the 20th of March, whatever it was, and he said that, I was just like, do you know what? Everything that's happened in the last 5 years has prepared me for this moment, and we're just going to ride it, and we're going to ride the wave, handle it with grace and ease, and that's something I'm massive on, grace and ease, and just go with it. Sarah was a little bit upset, but I was like, look what we've been through, and you're getting upset. And then she was like, yeah, you're right. And we've been through so much together, but that purpose allowed us to keep going. And I'm one of these people, I've been known to be really hard on myself, like really beat myself up, like not good enough. Again, all this comes from childhood, but not good enough. I should be doing better. This person's got that, and I should X, Y, and Z. Just really beating myself up, even when I'm doing well. Like beat myself up.
That's the worst one, isn't it?
Oh yeah, beat yourself up, and looking from the outside in, if you maybe looked at Kinetic on paper, you'd be like, that's a failing business. And sometimes I thought that to myself, like, oh, we're a failure. And then I went to obviously work with this psychology lady, and she was like, none of it's a failure, it's a success. You've gone for 5 years, kept the doors open. For the vast majority of the time, just me and Sarah. Yes, we've had a team of people, but the whole time it's been mainly me and Sarah. She's like, you've kept it going. Look at the hundreds of people's lives that you've changed for the better and helped, and look at all the life lessons that you and Sarah have learned from the 5 years of having this gym. She's like, it's not a fucking failure, it's a success. And I was just like, it's just the way that she framed it, and then that allowed me to like look at it in a different light. And I was like, yeah, man. And that was such a powerful moment, even though it's just a brief moment with her, that I just thought, I've got nothing to beat myself up about. I've achieved more in the last 10 years than some people achieve in their entire lifetime. And I don't say that to brag. I say that to show to people and to outline to people, whoever's taking the time to listen to this or watch this, that you can do anything. You can literally create your own reality. You can have whatever you want to have. You can be whoever you want to be. You can live your dream lifestyle, and I'm living proof of that, and so are you.
Deep.
Yeah, there's some stuff I've said there that I've not said to anybody else. So
I appreciate that. But like I said, it's one of those things where that honesty and transparency, like I said, it helps people, because I said it's understanding that people see things
and
on
have
paper.
Sorry, I'll just finish it off. Have I alienated people? Have I pissed people off? Have I probably treated people maybe not as well as I should have? Yes, I probably have. But again, it's all a learning curve, and it's all a lesson, and it allows me now to navigate through life, knowing how to be my true self, how to be the fullest version of myself, how to be honest with people, how to treat people, how business works, how to negotiate, all these incredible life lessons I've learned. And sometimes we have to go through the dirt, be dragged along the floor, get our face smashed in the mud, be at the bottom of the bottom, as I know you've been, to realize that life's a blessing, number one, and we're amazing people, and we can achieve amazing things. Even if you are at rock bottom, you can do anything. You can create whatever you want to create, and we're all able to create our own reality, and we're also all co-creating our own reality as well.
Completely agree. What's the future hold for you?
The future now is I'm working heavily to go down the line of public speaking, more podcasting, more presenting, more workshops, and I'm really gonna work with people that are like me, that have in a similar position to what I probably was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, who I can relate to, who can resonate with my story and resonate with what I've been through, and I can use the skills, tools, expertise, wisdom that I have and that I've gained to help those guys on their journey. And I really kind of do want to work with guys, with men, to help them become the best version of themselves. So that's where I see myself doing it, and probably that'll be a combination of online stuff and in-person stuff as well. So yeah, that's where I see things going. The gym, we'll see what happens with the gym. I do need to probably start like my psychologist, she keeps saying, you need to leverage your fucking gym. She's like, you own a fucking gym, for fuck's sake. Start leveraging it. And yeah, probably do need to start doing that a bit more. And with me, it's a bit of I'm a bit of a paradox or a double-edged sword when it comes to social media. I probably need to use it more. Some people would probably say to me, you're mad, you're always posting and stuff, but I probably do need to share my story, what I've been through, share a bit more of that kind of transparency and more honest stuff a bit more, and leverage the space that I've got so people can see that and can relate to it and think, do you know what, this guy can help me. So I'm learning all this stuff, I'm trying to unlock it, I'm doing it every single day. And that's another thing that I'd say to your audience is that's why we're here, is to learn and grow. And just, even if you just spend a couple of minutes or 5 minutes trying to be better than you were yesterday, you're on to a winner.
I love that.
My coach used to say to me, growth is the purpose, everything else is the result.
I love that. Mate, this has been a fascinating 4 hours I've spent with you today.
Yeah,
I know, like yesterday we spent an hour talking as well. Honestly, this has been really, really useful.
And thanks to Mikey, for hooking us up.
Yeah.
But this is what it's all about: connection and human connection, and just coming together. And you're never going to vibe with everyone. Some people, they're not going to be on your vibe, and that's absolutely cool. But as long as we're doing the best to be loving and compassionate and empathetic towards each other, that's what it's all about. And there's too much fear, there's too much lower vibrational energies being pushed out, and I don't think that is by the masses. I think it's by a few minority of people. But the more love, compassion, togetherness we can have, then yeah.
What a beautiful way to end.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more information about you?
Yeah, so I'd like people to check my podcast out, because I'm really passionate about it, and I enjoy doing it, which is The Kinetic Fitness Show. And kinetic is stylized, so it's a K on the end rather than a C. So KINETIK, fitness like fitness, show like show. So if you search that on all the platforms, you'll find that. On all social media, I've just got hacked on Twitter, so I'm not on Twitter. Not that I used it anyway, but on all social media, so LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, I'm at Ali West Coach. So just my name and then coach, so ALIWESTCOACH on all social. And the website is just kineticfitness.co.uk. So all of those platforms, people can check me out. But if anything, just people come and check my podcast out, because I'm sure they'll get a lot of value from at least one of the episodes.
Awesome. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Blessings. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it, mate.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.